Diagnosing the disease. That million-dollar doctors can't homeless. Black boy shocks everyone. The story follows Elijah Cross, a 12-year-old homeless boy, who challenges a prestigious hospital's authority when he correctly diagnoses a girl misdiagnosed as brain-dead. What begins as an act of desperation becomes a revolution in how medicine defines expertise, and a call to remember that healing begins with hearing what patients are trying to say. Elijah Cross burst through the double doors of Edenvale General's ICU like a force of nature no one expected. His clothes hung off his small frame in uneven folds, stitched, and held together with safety pins and resolve. His feet were bare, his skin streaked with city soot, but his eyes sharp, steady, and filled with the certainty of grief, cut through the room louder than his words. "Stop! You're killing her!" he shouted, pointing at the girl lying motionless in the hospital bed. "She's not brain dead. She's locked in." The doctors, nurses, and technicians froze. A wall of expensive education and protocol towered between them and the child who had just accused them of malpractice. At the head of that wall stood Dr. Veronica Hale, chief neurologist, world-renowned consultant, and the kind of doctor who hadn't been contradicted in a decade. She stared at the boy as if he were an insect crawling across her surgical tray. "Security," she snapped. Two guards immediately approached Elijah, but before they could lay a hand on him, a woman's voice rang out, shaky but firm. "Wait," said Mei Li, the mother of the girl in the bed. "I want to hear what he has to say." "You can't be serious," Dr. Hale muttered. "He said she's not brain dead," Mei said, stepping between Elijah and the guards. "That's the first different thing I've heard in 2 weeks. Let him talk." Elijah clutched the thick, battered medical textbook to his chest, like a lifeline. "Her name's Jasmine, right, 16. She collapsed 2 weeks ago. She's been unresponsive ever since. The machines show no voluntary motor function. You think she's gone, but she's not. She's locked inside." Dr. Hale's tone was ice. "And you are Elijah Cross," he said simply. "And I know what's happening to her. You're 12. I'm 12, he agreed. "And I've seen this before." There was something about the way he said it. Not dramatic, not defiant, just true. A hush spread through the room. Even the machines seemed to pause. "I'll give him 5 minutes," May said. "That's more than anyone else has given us." Dr. Hale's jaw tightened. She turned to the team. "This is absurd. But let him embarrass himself, and then we can proceed with the necessary decisions." As the guard stepped back, Elijah opened his textbook and flipped to a page scribbled with notes and arrows in a child's handwriting. He didn't hesitate. Locked-in syndrome in adolescence can present differently than in adults. You've been testing her responses using adult protocols: eye movement, pupil reaction, voluntary grasping. But you're missing the signs because you're looking for the wrong ones. Dr. Hale rolled her eyes. "We've conducted every test possible. An entire international team has reviewed her case. We've seen no indications of awareness." "You've seen what you expected to see," Elijah replied. "But her theta wave patterns, do they show fluctuations between 4 to 7 Hertz? Any gamma spikes over 30. That made Dr. Émile Laurent, the French specialist, blink. "Yes. But we attributed those to neural noise." "They're not noise. They're the brain trying to break through." "I know, because that's what happened to my sister." That silenced even Dr. Hale. "My sister Anthony," Elijah continued, voice low, but steady, "was 14 when she started having episodes. Everyone thought it was stress or attention-seeking. Even the ER dismissed her. Then she had one she didn't wake up from. They said it was sudden, unexplained death. I didn't believe it. I snuck into a hospital library and read everything I could. I found what it really was: locked-in syndrome. But I was 9. No one listened." He looked at Jasmine, then his voice softening. "I've been searching for someone like her ever since." Mei Li covered her mouth, tears rising. Elijah approached Jasmine's bedside and knelt beside her, placing the textbook carefully on the floor. "Jasmine," he said, his voice now only for her, I know you're scared, but I need your help to prove you're still in there. If you can hear me, blink twice." Dr. Hale made a dismissive noise, but the team watched anyway. Jasmine blinked. Once. Then, slowly, twice. The room froze. "No," Dr. Hale said, backing up a step. "No, that's involuntary. It has to be." But Elijah didn't break his focus. "Good, Jasmine. That was perfect. Now, can you squeeze my hand?" He took her hand gently in his. A second passed, then a faint pressure, barely noticeable. But it was there. "She's conscious," Elijah said calmly, still holding her hand. "She's been conscious this whole time." Dr. Laurent stumbled backward into a chair. Dr. Kim covered her mouth. Nurse Clara, who had worked night shifts, and once told Dr. Hale about subtle changes she noticed, whispered under her breath, "I knew it." Dr. Hale's face turned pale. "How did we miss this?" Elijah looked up, not accusing, just heartbroken. "Because you never thought to look." And in that moment, it became clear to everyone in the ICU that a barefoot boy with no credentials had just shattered everything they thought they knew about medicine. Dr. Hale stood frozen, her gaze locked on Jasmine's face. The blink had been deliberate, the hand squeeze undeniable. Her mind scrambled to frame it as coincidence, as reflex, as anything but what it was proof. Around her the room had shifted. Staff murmured instruments, beeped, but all of it faded behind the echo of Elijah's words. "Because you never thought to look." She recovered just enough composure to speak. "This doesn't prove full consciousness." "Yes, it does," Elijah replied, his voice steady. "But if you need more, I can give you more." "Let me run a simple cognitive test," Dr. Kim interjected. "We have no precedent for this." "You also had no precedent for a homeless child correcting your diagnosis," Nurse Clara muttered from the back. Dr. Laurent stepped forward slowly, face pale. "What kind of test?" "Basic math," Elijah said. "Jasmine, if you can understand me, I'm going to ask you a question. Blink twice for yes, once for no." He paused, giving everyone a moment to absorb what was about to happen. "What is 7 plus 5? Is the answer 12? Blink twice for yes." 2 clear, spaced blinks. Gasps broke out across the room. Dr. Hale flinched. "Let's try one more," Elijah said, locking eyes with her now. "Jasmine, were you born in June? Blink twice for yes, once for no." 1 blink. "Her birthday's in October." Mei Li whispered, her voice trembling. Now it was Dr. Hale who stepped back, as if Jasmine's awareness had physically struck her. Her mouth opened, but no words came. It wasn't just that she had misdiagnosed the girl. It was that Jasmine had been aware of everything. Every meeting, every pronouncement of futility, the consideration of withdrawing life support, the whispered conversations about cost. Elijah stood. "She's been trapped in a body that wouldn't respond. You talked around her like she didn't exist. But she heard it all." Dr. Laurent approached Jasmine's monitor, examining the EEG readout. "The theta waves. They're stabilizing. There's increased gamma activity too." "That's what recovery looks like," Elijah said. "If you stop giving her sedatives, her brain will begin re-establishing connections." Dr. Hale finally spoke, but her voice cracked. "Sedatives are standard for comfort in cases of unresponsive coma. They're the exact opposite of what she needs," Elijah said sharply. "They suppress the neural activity she's trying to rebuild. You're pushing her further away." Dr. Hale looked around the room, suddenly aware of the eyes fixed on her. Her team. Her legacy. "You expect me to believe that a child with no formal education understands neural pharmacology better than my entire staff? I expect you to believe what you just saw," Elijah answered. Dr. Kim nodded quietly. "We have to consider adjusting the protocol." "This is dangerous," Dr. Hale shot back. "You're suggesting we take medical advice from a boy who learned from dumpsters and charity clinics." "I'm not asking for trust," Elijah replied. "I'm asking for logic. You've seen the blinks. You've seen the responses. You've seen the EEG patterns. Keep doing what you're doing, and you'll kill her. The word kill landed like a slap. It wasn't scientific. It was personal. And it was true. Nurse Clara stepped forward, pulling a folded page from her pocket. 2 nights ago, during my shift, I saw this. She handed it to Dr. Hale. Her pulse spiked when her mother talked about school. I noted eye twitching when music played on the radio. I logged it. You dismissed it as static. Reflexes. I wanted to believe it was more. Dr. Laurent studied the note. You weren't wrong. Dr. Hale's voice wavered. We've followed protocol. That's the problem, Elijah said. You followed a system built for safety, not curiosity. Built for certainty, not humility. A long silence followed. Then, Dr. Kim quietly asked, "What would you do if this were your patient?" Elijah pulled his textbook from the floor. The cover was cracked, the spine held by strips of cloth and tape. He opened to a section filled with notes in pen-pencil and marker meticulous multicolored handwritten code from years of obsession. First, discontinue sedatives, he said, flipping to the treatment summary. Second, administer methylprednisolone 30 mg per kg to reduce inflammation in the brainstem. Third, start immediate neural stimulation exercises. Gentle, consistent. Targeted pressure points, joint mobility rhythm recall. Simple inputs that encourage her brain to respond. Dr. Laurent whispered, "That's textbook-level protocol. But the version most of us overlook. Because it came from a clinic," Elijah added. From a doctor who published in a journal no one reads. Because she treated uninsured patients. May looked at Elijah, then at her daughter, whose brow now furrowed ever so slightly in response to the increased voices around her. "She's hearing us," she whispered. "My baby's still in there." Dr. Hale looked shaken. She turned to her team. "If we stop sedation now, and this boy is wrong." "He's not," May said. "And you're scared because he's not." "I'm scared because if he's right." Dr. Hale trailed off, unable to finish the thought. "Then everything you believe about medicine," Elijah said gently, "has to change." The moment cracked something inside her. Dr. Hale, whose name had once commanded global respect, nodded once. Slowly. "We'll adjust the medication." Dr. Laurent gave the order to the nurse on shift. "Stop all sedatives immediately. Begin IV administration of methylprednisolone at Elijah's dosage recommendation." As staff moved to execute the instructions, Elijah sank into a chair by Jasmine's bed, exhaustion finally reaching him. May sat on the other side, gently brushing her daughter's hair with shaking fingers. Dr. Hale didn't speak. She simply stood by the window, watching the girl they had almost lost, and the child who had pulled her back. The machines didn't beep louder. The lights didn't flicker. But something had shifted. In that ICU, in that moment, the hierarchy of knowledge cracked wide open, and everyone in that room felt it. The change in atmosphere was almost imperceptible at first. As the sedatives drained from Jasmine's IV, and the methylprednisolone began to circulate through her bloodstream, the mechanical rhythm of her monitors shifted subtly. Not enough for a casual observer to notice, but for the trained eyes in the ICU, and for Elijah, it was everything. He remained seated beside her, the frayed edges of his textbook resting against his knees, eyes locked on her face. Beside him, May leaned forward, watching her daughter's eyelashes, as though they held the answer to everything. Breathing's adjusting. Nurse Clara observed her voice barely above a whisper. She's beginning to inhale deeper, almost like she's doing it herself. Dr. Kim looked up from the monitor. Alpha waves. We're getting alpha activity now. Relaxed wakefulness. She's stabilizing, Elijah murmured, not looking away. Now we start the exercises. Dr. Hale, still silent from her place near the window, finally turned to face them. Her eyes were tired, but no longer defensive. Show me. Elijah nodded and gently reached toward Jasmine's hand. Jasmine, I'm going to tap your forearm 3 times. If you feel it, blink once. He tapped slow and gentle. 1 blink. Dr. Laurent exhaled shakily. She's following stimulus. Next, Elijah said softly, "I'm going to apply light pressure to your left knee. If you feel that, blink twice." He placed his hand carefully on her leg and pressed. 2 blinks. The silence that followed felt heavier than any medical journal. "This is what she needed," Nurse Clara whispered. "Not more machines, not more meetings, just someone to actually look at her." Dr. Kim quietly handed Elijah a small sensor pad. "Use this to monitor nerve response. If you're right, we should see microsignals begin firing through her peripheral system." As Elijah positioned the pad on Jasmine's ankle, Dr. Hale stepped closer, hesitating. How did you learn all this? These techniques, the dosages, the diagnostics?" "I didn't have a choice," Elijah replied, still focused on his patient. "After Anthony died, I realized nobody was going to fix the system. So I stopped waiting for permission and started studying. Books, articles, research from clinics, anything I could get my hands on. I didn't care if it was peer-reviewed. I cared if it helped people." "You shouldn't have had to do that alone," Clara said. Elijah didn't respond. The silence said enough. A soft alert chimed from the sensor pad. Dr. Kim stepped forward. "Neural impulse. Positive. Weak, but clear. She's regaining signal transmission." "It's working," May whispered. "It's really working." Then, the moment none of them were prepared for. "Jasmine," Elijah said gently, "if you can just try to wiggle your toe for us. I want you to do it now. No pressure. Just a signal. Any signal." Time seemed to freeze. 1 second. 2. Then, a tiny movement. Her right big toe shifted less than a centimeter beneath the blanket. "Oh my God!" May sobbed, clutching her mouth. Even Dr. Hale swayed slightly, caught off guard by the surge of emotion. She moved. Clara confirmed, pointing to the muscle readout. It wasn't a spasm. It was intentional. Elijah didn't cry. He didn't cheer. He simply nodded, eyes brimming but composed. "She's on her way back." Dr. Laurent wiped his eyes. "I've seen recoveries before, but never like this. Not this fast, not this precise. It's not just the treatment," Elijah said. "It's being seen, heard. You stopped treating her like a chart and started treating her like a person." Dr. Hale stared at Jasmine for a long moment. "We could have killed her." Slowly, while congratulating ourselves on how thorough we were. "You still can save her," Elijah said. "But only if you keep listening." She nodded slowly. Just then, the door opened. Dr. Kenner, hospital administrator and longtime associate of Dr. Hale, stepped in with furrowed brows and a tablet in hand. "What's going on? I just got a report that the sedation protocol was halted." Dr. Hale straightened. "It was. Under medical advisement." "Whose advisement?" he asked, sharply scanning the room. "Mine," Dr. Hale said evenly. Kenner blinked. "And this child. What's he still doing here, saving a life?" Clara snapped before anyone else could speak. Elijah stood calm but direct. "I don't need your approval. But you should know this Jasmine isn't brain dead. She's recovering. And if you stop this treatment, you'll be responsible for what happens next." Kenner turned to Dr. Hale, disbelief growing on his face. "You're letting this continue?" "I am," she said firmly. Because he was right. "Veronica, think about your license, your board certification, your—" "I've thought about all of it," she interrupted. "I've also thought about the fact that for 2 weeks, I ignored the signs. And someone with no formal training saw what I couldn't." Kenner looked around at the others, searching for support. He found none. Clara crossed her arms. Dr. Kim kept her eyes on the monitor. Dr. Laurent offered no help. "Fine," Kenner muttered. "But this stays between us. If the media gets wind of this, it's too late for that," Dr. Hale said. "Because the truth deserves to get out." Kenner stared at her, incredulous. "You're willing to burn your whole career over this?" She turned to Elijah. "If it means saving her, then yes." The boy held her gaze, nodding once. Not in triumph, but in quiet recognition. The unlikeliest alliance had just been forged. And Jasmine Lee, 16 years old, forgotten by every specialist who reviewed her case, now had a team who finally believed in her. Doctor Hale's voice still lingered in the air like a quiet confession. If it means saving her, then yes. And in that moment, no one doubted her. Not the nurse, not the international specialists, not even Elijah, who had spent the last 3 years believing people like her would never listen. Outside the ICU, whispers were already spreading like wildfire. A teenage girl, thought to be brain-dead, had just moved, her toe blinked to answer questions and shown signs of recovery, all after a barefoot 12-year-old interrupted one of the most elite medical teams in the country. Staff from other departments began appearing under the guise of routine rounds, their glances lingering through the glass windows of room 414, trying to catch a glimpse of the impossible. But inside, the work continued. Elijah adjusted Jasmine's blanket carefully, monitoring her breathing pattern and the slight muscular twitches that now appeared in her left fingers. May stood quietly at the head of the bed, her hand cradling her daughter's, afraid to let go even for a second. Dr. Laurent, seated with a tablet in hand, began entering new data. Theta wave stabilization now above 70%. EMG signals responding. And we're getting intermittent voluntary motor impulses in both upper limbs. This is real, Clara said, tears in her voice. This isn't recovery. This is resurrection. Elijah didn't look up. It's what happens when you stop suppressing the brain's attempts to heal. Dr. Kim turned from the vital screen. The medication's reaching full therapeutic levels. What now? We maintain stimulation, Elijah replied. Physical and auditory. Talk to her. Touch her hands, her face. Familiar voices help reroute neural pathways. Dr. Hale stepped forward slowly, still visibly carrying the weight of her collapse hours earlier. Jasmine, she said carefully, this is Dr. Hale. I owe you an apology. We've been treating you as if you couldn't hear us, couldn't feel us. But you were there the entire time. Listening. 2 slow blinks. Everyone froze. That was for me, Dr. Hale asked. Another 2 blinks. She closed her eyes, a tremble visible in her hands. Permission to feel guilty, she whispered. Elijah glanced at her. Only if you use it to change. Already started, she said with a weak smile. Suddenly the door burst open. It was Dr. Kenner again, this time with 2 hospital board members and a legal representative in tow. Their suits, sharp expressions, and anxious pacing made it clear they hadn't come to offer support. We need to speak to all medical personnel involved with patient Jasmine Lee, one of them announced. Immediately. In private. On what grounds? Clara asked, standing in front of Jasmine's bed, as if her body could somehow shield the girl from bureaucracy. On the grounds that this treatment deviated from standard protocol, involved an unauthorized civilian, and created potential liability for the hospital, the legal rep snapped. Unauthorized civilian, Dr. Kim echoed, rising to her feet. He saved her. The second board member stepped forward. Dr. Hale, we understand you authorized a change in treatment. You do realize this could be grounds for suspension. Correct? Dr. Hale's voice was steady now. Then suspend me. I'd rather be punished for saving a life than applauded for ending one prematurely. And what about the boy? The legal advisor asked sharply. He's not a licensed physician. He should not be within 100 feet of this ICU. You'll have to drag him out, Clara said, folding her arms. Because if you try to remove him now, you're risking Jasmine's life. She's right, Dr. Laurent added. Elijah's been tracking her responses more precisely than any of us. If she blinks differently, if her breath changes, he sees it before the monitors do. Kenner's face darkened. You're all losing perspective. No, Dr. Hale said, stepping in front of Elijah. We're finally gaining it. May turned toward the board members, her voice calm but powerful. My daughter is alive because of him. And every minute you waste trying to protect your reputation, instead of supporting her recovery, is another reminder of why people don't trust hospitals. There was a long pause. Then Jasmine blinked, once, slowly, followed by a faint smile at the corner of her lips. Elijah caught it, and leaned forward. "Jasmine, can you try to say something?" Even a whisper. It took all her strength. The effort was visible in her neck, her jaw, her eyes. Then came the sound. Mom! The room shattered into tears. May collapsed into her daughter's arms, sobbing uncontrollably. Clara covered her mouth while Dr. Kim whispered a prayer in Korean. Even Dr. Hale stepped backward, tears silently sliding down her cheeks. Kenner's mouth opened, then closed. Jasmine's eyes fluttered open wider. She turned her head slightly, just slightly toward Elijah. "You came," she whispered. Elijah's throat tightened. He swallowed hard, barely nodding. "I told Anthony I wouldn't let it happen again." Dr. Hale turned to the board. "Still want to throw him out?" No one answered. A nurse stepped into the room holding a clipboard. "We've just received over 40 phone calls. Journalists, patient advocates, even the state health commissioner's office." The board members paled. "This story," she added, "is already out." Kenner muttered something under his breath, then stormed out of the room, the others following. When they were gone, Dr. Hale let out a shaky breath. "Well, that bought us time." Elijah sank into the chair beside Jasmine again, exhausted but focused. Time is all she needs now, and for the first time in 2 weeks, the future inside room 414 didn't feel like mourning. It felt like recovery. The word recovery hadn't felt possible in room 414 just 24 hours earlier. But now, with Jasmine's whispered "Mom" still echoing in the room, and board members silenced by undeniable progress, a new atmosphere settled over the ICU, not one of hope, but of responsibility. Elijah didn't let himself celebrate. He stayed by Jasmine's side, watching every flicker of her eyes, every faint shift in her limbs. He knew better than anyone that healing wasn't linear. Recovery, real recovery, was not just about the body. It was about rebuilding trust, not only in the patient's brain, but in the systems that had failed her. Jasmine was breathing more steadily now, her chest rising in rhythm with her pulse instead of the machine. Clara adjusted the settings on the ventilator, allowing Jasmine to gradually take over more of the work herself. Dr. Kim stood nearby, eyes glued to the vital screen. Alpha waves consistent, REM patterns appearing. Elijah, her brain's not just functioning, it's dreaming. "She's coming back," Elijah said softly. "We just have to let her." May never left her daughter's side, whispering words of love and comfort, sometimes singing Jasmine's favorite lullabies. Every response, blink, micro-movement, faint tightening of her jaw, was logged in the new recovery chart Clara had created, labeled Patient-Led Response Protocol. Dr. Hale stood in the corner, a legal pad in her hands filled with notes, not about the medication, but about Elijah's methods, the timeline of events, the moment Jasmine first responded. She was documenting everything now, not for defense, but for change. The guilt hadn't left her face, but neither had the determination. The hospital board hadn't returned, though everyone knew they would. But for now, the ICU was a sanctuary sealed off from politics and lawsuits existing only to serve one purpose: giving Jasmine her life back. Elijah, Dr. Laurent said, flipping through a digital chart, "We have 2 other patients in the neuro wing with unresponsive symptoms. 1 coma, 1 post-cardiac event. Not officially declared brain dead, but no signs of improvement in over a week." Elijah looked up. "You think they're misdiagnosed?" "I think," Laurent said carefully, "that for the first time in my career, I don't trust what I see unless I ask the right questions." Dr. Hale nodded. "Start with eye response, then tactile reaction. Pull Elijah's assessment protocol." "You're letting me lead the review?" Elijah asked, startled. "You're the reason Jasmine is alive," Hale replied. "That gives you more credibility than any title." Still, Elijah said, "I'd rather stay here for now. She's not out of danger yet." "Of course," Laurent said. "We'll check in once we complete the initial screenings." As the team dispersed to review the other patients, Elijah turned back to Jasmine. Her eyes followed him now with subtle intention, her lips trying to shape words. He leaned closer. "What is it?" What do you want to say? Was I alone? She asked, voice rough, but clear enough to understand. No, Elijah whispered. You were never alone. Tears filled May's eyes again as she kissed her daughter's forehead. You heard us? Clara asked, stepping in. Jasmine blinked twice. All of it. Another 2 blinks. The weight of that realization hit everyone differently. May wept in gratitude. Clara exhaled with quiet rage at herself for not pushing harder. Dr. Hale stood completely still, a trembling in her fingers. She didn't try to hide anymore. Then Jasmine blinked once. No. What does she mean? May asked. Elijah leaned in. You want to clarify something? He asked gently. You weren't alone. Because you heard someone else. 1 blink. Someone besides your mom. 2 blinks. Elijah paused. Me? 2 blinks again. The moment was almost too much. May reached over and gently placed a hand over Elijah's. You were her anchor, she said, voice thick with emotion, even before she could speak. Elijah squeezed her hand back. She's stronger than anyone knows. Suddenly the intercom buzzed. Dr. Hale, please report to conference room C. Urgent. She sighed. I'm guessing that's the board. You want me to come? Elijah asked. No, she said. Not yet. But I'll be telling them exactly what they need to hear. Before she left, Dr. Hale turned to Jasmine. I'm sorry. Again. And I'll spend the rest of my career making sure what happened to you never happens to anyone else. Jasmine blinked once, then slowly raised her index finger just enough to point at Elijah. Clara laughed softly. Looks like she already picked her doctor. As Dr. Hale exited the ICU, her lab coat, unbuttoned legal pad in hand, and hair undone from the long shift, she passed the nurses' station where a few other staff were gathered, many of whom had quietly doubted, gossiped, or dismissed the boy who'd barged into their temple of certainty. Dr. Hale, one of them, said hesitantly, Is it true? She paused. If you mean, did a homeless child diagnose what a $3 million team missed? Yes. And he saved a life in the process. They said nothing more as she walked down the hallway with purpose. Inside room 414, Jasmine stirred slightly. Elijah reached for her hand again. I need you to rest now, he said quietly. They're going to fight over what this means. But I promise you, we're not done. She nodded just barely. May sat with her daughter, combing her fingers gently through Jasmine's hair. Elijah, she said softly. What made you come here? Why Edenvale? I saw the case on a bulletin board at a clinic, he answered. Unexplained coma. Same age as my sister. Something told me I had to check. And what if you hadn't? He looked at Jasmine, her breathing now peaceful. Then she'd still be trapped. May's eyes darkened with the weight of the truth. And so would the rest of us. Elijah nodded slowly, then opened his textbook again, this time, not to diagnose, but to begin rewriting the protocols that had just saved a life. Because if they were going to fight to protect the system, he was going to make sure the system no longer ignored voices like Jasmine's, or his own. Elijah flipped through the worn pages of his textbook, pencil in hand, carefully annotating a new section he labeled Jasmine Protocol, Adolescent Locked-In Identification. The lines weren't neat, but the structure was sound: checklists, symptoms, blinking communication patterns, adjusted EEG readings. It was his way of ensuring that what had happened to Jasmine would be easier to catch next time and harder to dismiss. May sat across from him, Jasmine asleep between them. Her daughter's hand rested loosely in hers, the pressure no longer just reactive, but gently active. The small twitches in her fingers, the steadier breathing, the more frequent blinks, they were all signs of emergence. Of return. You're rewriting medicine, May said softly. I'm just writing down what should have already been there, Elijah answered. Before May could respond, the door creaked open. Dr. Hale stepped back into the room, her face unreadable, her coat gone, replaced by a black cardigan, and a hospital ID clipped to her belt. Her hands were empty. No legal pad, no folder, just quiet eyes. They accepted your resignation, didn't they? Elijah asked. She nodded. Unanimously. No debate. Clara looked up from the foot of Jasmine's bed. I'm so sorry, Dr. Hale. Don't be Hale, replied her voice firm. I earned it. She stepped closer to Jasmine and gently touched the girl's shoulder. I made the wrong call. For 2 weeks. And now a 12-year-old has taught me more about medicine in a day than I learned in 2 decades. They'll try to bury it, Elijah said. The board, the administration, they're scared. They should be, Hale said. Because this is going public. She turned to May. I recommended a full refund to your family. All treatment costs. I also told them if they didn't acknowledge the failure publicly, I'd hold my own press conference. And what did they say? May asked. They voted to refund the full $482,000, Hale said. They're working on a statement. But they're not doing it out of kindness. They're doing it because they know it's going to come out one way or another. She then turned to Elijah. And I told them they should hire you. Elijah blinked. You what? As a consultant, she continued. Not a symbolic role. A real one. Paid. Credentialed. With access to records, training, and staff. He hesitated. I can't stay here. There are more people like Jasmine out there. More kids in other hospitals. I know, Hale said. Which is why I suggested something else, too. From the doorway, Dr. Laurent entered with a small black folder. A citywide diagnostic outreach program. Mobile. You consult remotely. Visit hospitals. Review difficult cases. We fund it. Support it, staff it. Backed by Edenvale, Hale added. In your name. Elijah looked stunned. Why would they agree to that? Because they're terrified of what happens if they don't, Hale said. Because you made it impossible for them not to change. And because you're saving them more than they realize. You didn't just save Jasmine, you saved the hospital from itself. May reached over and touched Elijah's arm. You'd be helping more families than you'll ever meet. Elijah glanced down at his textbook, then back at Jasmine, who blinked once, slow, deliberate calm. I'll do it, he said finally. But on one condition. Name it, Hale said. We name it after her, he said. The Jasmine Protocol. Laurent smiled. Done. At that moment, Nurse Clara's pager buzzed. She checked it and looked up startled. You're not going to believe this. Room 510. The boy who's been in a coma since the drowning incident last month just responded to blinking cues. Laurent turned sharply. Did someone apply Elijah's pattern? Clara nodded. One of the night shift nurses copied the test sequence he posted on the whiteboard. Blink once, for no twice, for yes. He blinked 3 times when asked if he was in pain. Get an assessment team in there, Hale said immediately. Start a response log, and tell them to stop sedatives effective immediately. Elijah stood. I'll come with you. May caught his wrist gently. Take care of them. We'll be here. He nodded and followed Clara and Dr. Laurent out the door, the folder still in his hand. Later that night, the hospital corridors were strangely quiet. Elijah returned to the small family lounge and sat in a worn chair near a vending machine. The folder containing the outreach program proposal rested on his lap, unopened. Dr. Hale found him there hours later, a half-empty juice box by his side, the ever-present textbook open beside him. Can't sleep, she asked. Too much to think about. She sat across from him. I don't understand something, he said. Why did you change your mind? Because I stopped asking what this meant for my reputation, she said, and started asking what it meant for her. Elijah didn't speak for a moment. Then, that's what my sister used to say. If you want to understand the patient, stop thinking about the system. What was her name? Hale asked. Anthony. She'd be proud. Elijah looked down. I hope so. I promised her I'd stop this from happening again. You kept that promise, Hale said. To her, to Jasmine, to all of us. Just then, May poked her head into the lounge. She's awake. Elijah jumped to his feet. Really? She said a full sentence. May said, smiling through tears. She said, I want to go home. Elijah's shoulders sank in relief. She's going to make it. Yes, Hale said quietly. Thanks to you. As they made their way back to room 414, Elijah passed a bulletin board in the hallway, its glass frame now filled with a new flyer. The Jasmine Protocol, Early Diagnostic Checklist, now in use. Below it, a photo of Jasmine smiling faintly in her hospital bed, with the quote, "I heard everything." He paused for a moment, staring at the words. Then continued down the hall, ready to finish what he started. Elijah stood in front of the bulletin board, staring at Jasmine's photo beneath the bold letters of the Jasmine Protocol. The image was simple, her pale smile, the IV still taped to her hand, eyes slightly tired, but alive. Fully, undeniably alive. And the quote below it, "I heard everything." That sentence was no longer just a haunting truth. It was a declaration that had changed an institution. He took a breath and stepped back into room 414. Jasmine turned her head slowly toward him, her expression soft with recognition. May was feeding her small sips of water from a straw, while Nurse Clara stood at the foot of the bed updating the charts. "She said your name when you were gone," May whispered as Elijah approached. "I missed it." "You'll hear it again." Jasmine rasped her voice, still hoarse, but steady. Elijah grinned and lowered into the chair beside her bed. "You're doing great." "I remember it all," Jasmine said. "Everything. The voices, the talk about turning off." She stopped, eyes misting over. "You don't have to talk about that," he said gently. "I want to," she whispered. "It made me fight harder." Dr. Laurent entered behind him holding a file folder with 2 sets of updates. "Good morning," he said warmly. 3 more patients have been re-evaluated using your protocol. 2 showed responsive EEG activity we never noticed before. Elijah blinked. 2-1 already followed up with IQs this morning, he said. A 15-year-old boy, Jared Timmons. The other is still under assessment, but we may have caught both in time. And room 510, Elijah asked, already showing increased voluntary patterns. He wiggled his foot. His parents are beside themselves. Jasmine smiled faintly. It's spreading. Clara added, they're calling it the Cross Network. Nurses are texting the checklist across the city. Wait, Elijah said. I didn't approve that name. It's unofficial, Clara said, smirking. You're stuck with it. The moment was interrupted by a knock on the door. Dr. Hale entered slowly, her clothes, wrinkled eyes tired but bright. You look like you've been up all night, Elijah said. I have, she admitted. But for once, not because I was drowning in cases. Because I was building something. She handed him a tablet. What's this? He asked. The first national rollout plan, she said. 3 major hospitals want to adopt the Jasmine Protocol. They want your involvement, as lead advisor. Elijah stared at the screen. Names of hospitals he'd only ever seen on TV Bellevue in New York. Cedars-Sinai in LA, Houston General. All requesting his help. They want me to lead it, he asked. They want the kid who saved Jasmine Lee. They want the boy who taught us how to listen again. May touched his arm gently. You've already changed this hospital, Elijah. You could change so many more. He looked down at Jasmine. What do you think? Go, she said. Make sure no one else is left in the dark like I was. Dr. Hale added, there's one more thing. The American Medical Review Board. Oh no, Elijah muttered, bracing himself. They're not trying to shut you down. They're drafting a new classification, non-traditional diagnostic specialist. They want you to be the first. Elijah blinked. I don't even know what to say. Say yes, Hale said. Then say, thank you to Anthony. Elijah went quiet. I do everything because of her, he said. I still hear her voice every time I doubt myself. And now others will hear yours, Hale said. Whether they're ready or not. That evening, the hospital hosted a quiet press conference. No podium, no grand banners, just folding chairs in the atrium and a simple poster reading, Restoring What Was Missed. Jasmine sat in a wheelchair beside May. Elijah stood at the front with Dr. Hale and Clara. A few reporters, some hospital staff, and family members of recovered patients gathered, unsure of what to expect. Dr. Morrison, the hospital director, gave the opening remarks. "We failed," he said plainly. "We failed to listen. We failed to question." And a 12-year-old boy with a torn textbook succeeded where our entire system collapsed. He stepped aside and gestured to Elijah. The boy walked to the center, holding his same duct-taped book. No speech, no slides. He looked directly at the crowd. "My sister Anthony died because no one listened. Jasmine almost died for the same reason. But it doesn't have to keep happening." He opened the textbook to a heavily marked page. This is what saved her. Not because it's fancy, not because it came from Harvard, but because I read it, remembered it, and believed it mattered. That she mattered. Then he closed the book and stepped back. The room erupted in quiet applause, not thunderous, but raw, real. A few people were crying. Some just nodded. As the evening ended, Jasmine was wheeled beside Elijah once more. "She said she wants to be part of the outreach team," May said, grinning. "Wants to tell her story. Help explain what it felt like to be locked in." Elijah turned to Jasmine. "You sure?" She nodded. "I heard everything. Now it's my turn to speak." And as they sat there, Elijah, Jasmine, May, and Dr. Hale beneath the dim lights of a hospital that was no longer just a place of treatment, but of transformation, they knew something undeniable. The world of medicine had changed. And it wasn't because of titles or awards. It was because one boy refused to stop paying attention.